I appreciate you sitting down with me one more time, Gary. Listen, I want to give you my last offer, and I hope you are willing to sign. I will offer you 3 years at $3 million per year, 50% car input alongside your teammate. On top of that, I will put you in diverse cars and other motorsports with our Trackhouse program. I will get you into the Indy 500, a NASCAR Cup car, WEC, and more. You have my word on that.
I mean, honestly, I'm down. Let's go through with it. Let's sign it. Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 24 Career Mode here on the channel. We have officially signed a deal for 3 years with the new team coming into Formula 1 next season, Trackhouse Racing, the second American team that will join the grid. But as well, we have to still finish out this season with Williams. There was offers on the table from Williams as well as McLaren, but I had a phone call with Sebastian Vettel before I made this decision, and here was a bit of his advice.
You'll just be playing second fiddle to Norris at McLaren. Williams, I don't see the long-term potential in. Trackhouse give you the chance to create a big legacy for you and the team. You will just need to be patient.
And that was the advice from Sebastian Vettel leading into the decision that we would end up making. And on top of that decision in announcing that we're going to Trackhouse Racing, well, Trackhouse announced the full driver lineup for next season. Our teammate is going to be Carlos Sainz, who will be joining alongside us going into the first debut season for the Trackhouse Racing team. So, our final handful of races, of course, as a Williams driver will kick off this weekend. And I really wanted to do this. I mean, when Trackhouse came to us early on in the season, it was something that I was intrigued by. Of course, we made the comments that we wanted to kind of show that Formula 1 drivers can excel in other forms of motorsports. And we're going to try and showcase exactly that by going into the Indy 500 for sure next season. But as well, looking at doing a NASCAR race for Trackhouse's NASCAR program. They already do, of course, this third car, Project 91, where they bring in other drivers. They've done Kimi Räikkönen, Shane Van Gisbergen as well. But on top of that, Trackhouse is interested in entering a WRC car. So I think I said WEC as well is going to be a possibility. So there's a lot of things on the way and a lot of doors that are going to be opened up with this opportunity at Trackhouse, which was really the selling point for me. Is being able to do a lot of cool things with this team, and on top of that, build a legacy with them, build a legacy for ourselves as well. And yeah, McLaren, I felt like just playing second fiddle to Lando Norris really isn't ideal for me, although of course they would be the best option in terms of R&D, because I can tell you right now, Trackhouse is going to be at the bottom of the grid to start their first season in Formula 1, so it's going to have to be requiring a lot of patience. There's a 3-year plan in place, and that's also how long our deal is with Trackhouse Racing, but basically be a race-winning team within the first 3 seasons. We know there will be major regulation changes coming into Season 3 for the 2026. There's also going to be likely some regulation changes coming in as well. Actually, there is regulation changes coming in for next season here as well. It was announced that the aerodynamic departments will be seeing some regulation changes going into next season, but just one department only. We focus in on the rest of the weekend now. Of course, we still got tasks at hand. We got to race, and we got to do 2 races. It's a sprint weekend here from Circuit of the Americas, which means short qualifying for both sessions. Of course, when we have sprint weekends, we only do short qualifying, 1 session. Just go as fast as you can and see what you can do here now. And it was not a great start for me here. We went P11 right off the bat early on. Hahowever, I was tumbling down the order as well. I was down to P12 at this point. I was finding a little bit more time. I found about 1/10 of a second as we go through this penultimate left-hander. Now coming to the line, we found a good portion of time right there. We hook up the final turn, try to get hard on the gas, couldn't quite lay down the throttle as much as I want. We go back to P11, we run another lap, the final lap opportunity that we're going to get, and we were down to P18 to really put into perspective how much pace I am lacking. We lose the rear and we spin round, and it's going to be an 18th place starting position here for the sprint. An absolute disaster. I had no pace at all here in qualifying, while Max Verstappen is on pole by 2/10 over Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin comes in as one of the best teams this weekend in terms of R&D, and they are showing it right off the bat, but P18 as we would focus in on coming to the grid here in the sprint. Not where we want to be starting. Fresh off the news, of course, that we're leaving Williams, and then something like that happens is not ideal. We will be starting on the medium compound tire and get ready to roll here. Now, rain is a potential threat, but it should not affect this sprint by the end.
Okay, Gary, we're committed to sending you off properly this year. Let's have a good weekend.
Yeah, 10-4, James, thank you to you, as well as everyone for all the awesome time so far in my rookie season. I'm going to miss you guys. Obviously, we still have, a few races left this season. I mean, we're only in round 19 of 24. Max Verstappen continues to stretch out his championship gap. He has been on, just perfect form as of late. Now those Red Bulls have been just about untouchable now as we get ready to go racing. 10 laps here in Circuit of the Americas for the Sprint 5 red lights. We're racing now from COTA. Max Verstappen will lead the way towards turn number 1. It's a bit of a slow start for myself. Verstappen's under pressure from Fernando Alonso. The Spaniard well into his 40s, looking for his first win in over a decade. Well, it wouldn't be a Grand Prix win today if he could pull it off, but it would be a sprint win nonetheless. They're drag racing through into the S's, but it's going to be Verstappen. I think that's going to get the edge. Yes, he will. Fernando Alonso going to settle into P2, maybe P3. Here comes Oscar Piastri. Slips up the inside. Alonso went wide. They're wheel to wheel, and as well the two Mercedes in the background. Russell and Hamilton side by side scrapping it out as well, and you see Russell with a bit of a moment there, but Lewis Hamilton goes through, takes the third position now, as you can see the rest of the field settling things out there, and actually there goes one of the Haas cars, and then myself, I'm going to put some pressure up the inside of fellow Canadian of Lance Stroll. Nearly drove into the back of the Haas, but we continue on. We're going to drag race down this long back straightaway. Lando Norris here, just a few spots in front of us, while his teammate of Oscar Piastri up there in P2. The two Mercedes again battling, but it's going to be Hamilton. I believe that's going to come out on top of that. Yes, it will be. So Hamilton maintains in front. Mercedes looking like they're showing a little bit more speed this weekend again, because they have certainly been struggling recently here. We got Hülkenberg and Stroll right there on our nose. We're going to dive one up the inside of Nico Hülkenberg, though. We'll take that second position away, or 15th position away there. Thank you very much. So we have gained a few spots on this opening lap. The question now is, will we be able to hang on? There was some contact for Pierre Gasly on this opening lap with the V-carb, and that would pick him up some wing damage, and it got worse for Pierre Gasly. So he would get a new front wing, a new set of mediums, and on the same lap he comes back out, he would actually go for a half spin. So it's just an absolute disastrous start for Pierre Gasly in the sprint weekend, as we had settled now into P15 coming to lap 3 there. A bit of a lockup on the left front, but just behind Lance Stroll here in, well, that Aston Martin is a really good car when it comes to the R&D, so I was expecting it to be quite difficult to pass, and with the AI fix mod, it was quite difficult to follow cars through this section, and even the AI were having a difficult time following each other through the S's, with the dirty air, of course, being thrown onto the front of other cars. It was making it really hard to follow. You had to really be patient, had to really ease the car through there, and you were really just searching for clean air. Wherever you could find it, you were trying to put your car in that first sector. Everywhere else was relatively normal feeling for these cars now, but we had just kind of been holding on in number 15, as you can see me right there with that dirty air, just kind of plowing this car. It looked like the V-carbs, for whatever reason, Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo as well, their cars were really struggling with the dirty air, and they were kind of just going really wide on some of the apexes in that S section in Sector 1, but Max Verstappen, he continues to lead, and look at the gap on the track map. He is, absolutely flying right now as we get a little bit of Oscar Piastri radio.
I'm losing a bit of power here, guys.
You hear Oscar Piastri say he's losing a bit of power, which would explain the gap that we are seeing increase, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get overtaken here by Alonso soon enough, as we continue on in this 15th position now. Lance Stroll really struggling to go forward on Yuki Tsunoda right now, but sure enough, Piastri under pressure from Fernando Alonso. Here we go. It's going to be the first overtake of, I'm sure, going to be kind of like a train effect for Piastri. He's going to have cars going past him left and right as these laps go on. Fortunately for him, only 5 more laps to go. End of lap 6 coming to lap 7. Now coming to 4 laps to go at this point. We are just trying to hang on. I just didn't quite have enough to do anything from this position. I was lacking pace in qualifying, and we're definitely lacking it a little bit now. Now, fortunately, Park Fermé is not on until you get into the Grand Prix qualifying, so we can make some setup changes, and I think that's what we're going to have to do now, as here's Piastri now under attack from Lewis Hamilton, who's going to go around the outside, wheel to wheel. He tries to keep it alongside, but Hamilton gets through. Hamilton into third, and literally the next front straightaway around. Here comes now George Russell to lunge one up the inside of the Australian. This will put Russell into P4. Mercedes has shown up here today as Perez just behind Oscar Piastri. He'll be next in line to try and make the overtake happen now. We start lap 8 of 10. We're settled into P15 still. Just can't quite find the pace that I need. And now, as you can see, Perez goes wide. Esteban Ocon through into P6. The Frenchman up into the 6th position. What a drive for the Alpine. And then, of course, on the DRS straight, Piastri still struggling with a lack of power. And it's going to be Ocon into 5th place. Unbelievable scenes there. Piastri drops to P6. Perez, Albon just behind Leclerc inside the 2 Ferraris really struggling spin. Perez, the Mexican, goes around and he stops in front of everybody. I'm coming up on it as well and I catch it just in time. We pull out, go off circuit, slip through. We're into the top 10. We're into the points in the sprint. P7, it's absolute chaos. There's not enough time for a safety car, which is why we're not seeing one. Probably would have been a red flag, but cars are all littered across the racetrack. Leclerc drops to P13. Down the order as well goes Perez and Norris. And our teammate of Albon drops to P9. Sainz goes up to P8. And as that's happening, Bottas with a mechanical failure. It's going to be the end of the day for him as well. What a chaotic moment here late in the sprint, and we capitalize to perfection into P7, and now we have a 4-second gap to Carlos Sainz now, and I'm just at this point, I'm like, okay, let's just try and bring this home and take the few points out of it now that we definitely were not going to have without that chaos. Now, final lap of the sprint is underway, and we were losing a good chunk of time to Carlos Sainz. He was now less than 2 seconds back when he was over 4 seconds back after I had gotten through all of that chaos, but it's all Max Verstappen here now, as we just need to hang on to the end of the straightaway, and Carlos Sainz is closing in at a rapid rate, but just not enough, and it's all Max Verstappen coming through. Round the final turn, he's going to hold off Fernando Alonso by a full 8 seconds. Verstappen wins the sprint and extends his championship lead further on Charles Leclerc, who's going to be down in 12th position as we round these final couple of corners. And our future teammate Carlos Sainz now, of course, announced this weekend, him and myself, the 2 drivers going to Trackhouse, the new team to Formula 1 next season. We're both going to round these final turns, get P7 and P8 here in the sprint. We'll absolutely take it. I mean, a lot better than what it was going to be, but obviously, you know, you look at a P7 in this scenario with a grain of salt, because we know, even as we get driver of the day as well, that was not really the capabilities of my car here in the sprint. So obviously some work is going to need to be done, and I felt like specifically I needed to make some kind of downforce adjustments to get a little bit more straight line speed, so, you know, get a little bit more of an aerodynamic feel to this car and see what we can do in a straight line. So that was kind of my idea going into Grand Prix qualifying now. So we qualified 18th in the sprint. Let's aim to do better than that here in the actual Grand Prix qualifying. Again, a short session, but still a bit more time on the clock this time, because sprint qualifying, no matter what, it's just shorter in general. But my first and opening lap here in qualifying, a little bit traffic kind of covered right here in the opening parts. Actually had a bit of a moment there with Lance Stroll, and avoiding him kind of screwed up my apex for the left-hander, so that immediately hurt my lap. And now it was just kind of about coming back around and putting up kind of a baseline lap to see where we at least are. And we're going to go into this final left-hander, the 90-degree left-hander that is, hard on the gas on the exit. Got to be a little bit patient though. We crossed the line and we're only P14 ahead of Gasly and Ricciardo, and we were down to 18th place again late in the session. So putting on a new set of soft compound tires, heading back onto the track, and immediately my time, it was off. I mean, we were nearly 0.2 of a second off. We were 0.2 of a second off, and then I invalidated my lap, so that was cool. So it was not looking good. Another lap around, and now we got a little bit of traffic there with Tsunoda. It doesn't get much closer. He actually went off track to stay out of my way right there, which I guess I do appreciate that. But then we're coming up on Lewis Hamilton. This is going to get a little bit awkward, not leaving a lot of room, but we still find time. We found over 2/10 now, nearly 0.3 of a second gain. Hard on the gas here. This is where we can make some gains for sure. Sergio Perez just up in front of, a little bit wide on the apex now, but Perez, who crashed in the sprint, now going to get out of my way, but we lost some time again. And as we round these final few corners, we're going to come up towards this penultimate turn, only looking at about a 1/10.5 of a gain and a bit of a wide exit again. And now less than a 1/10. We are just struggling. We're making mistakes around the circuit, missing apexes, and we only find 1/10. I would, however, have enough time for one more lap. I would settle in behind Perez, kind of recharge, get one lap left literally as the clock is hitting 0. But we were down in P19. Things are not looking any better, and right now we're in the red. Now we just barely dip into the green, and we keep barely dipped in the green. Now a 10th gain in that penultimate turn, one more turn to go. It's not going to be pretty with what we're gaining here, not even 0.2 of a second to the line. It's just not enough. You see me shaking my head on the left, just disappointed. P17 is what it's going to be, only one spot better I think than the sprint, as our teammate of Albon has the pace. Fortunately, I mean, we're closer than I thought we would be, only 0.4 back from Albon. But nonetheless, some work to do as we head into the Grand Prix on Sunday. Verstappen again on pole.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. It's the Circuit of the Americas then, situated 14 miles outside of the great city of Austin. This is a 3.6-mile lap with 20 corners, 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and top speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Overtaking opportunities are available into turns 1 and 12, especially with that rear wing DRS wide open. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Albon, Gasly, Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Golden Boy, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Joe, and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today.
It has not been an easy weekend so far. Track position seems really important, so as we start on mediums, transition to hards, the goal here is to just get on the attack into turn 1 and gain as much as we possibly can.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out.
We see the whole field starting on medium compound tires in this Red Bull front row lockout.
As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, mate, try to get after it in turn 1 here. Track position is key.
Yeah, 10-4, boys. Yeah, not been the weekend we want, but let's try to end this on a high note. So, we'll get ready to go racing here in Circuit of the Americas now, and yeah, I mean, we can't hide it. I mean, we have just been off the pace a bit all weekend long, and you see that large climb there towards turn number 1. It's a one heck of an elevation change. We go up 1 spot to P16 due to grid penalties. Verstappen, Perez, front row lockout for Red Bull Racing. Is this going to be lights out? And we're racing from Circuit of the Americas. Can we make some ground up? 28 laps of racing now. Plenty of time to make things happen, and immediately into turn 1, gonna go for an aggressive move up the inside of Ocon and Piastri. As we are now gonna be 3 wide on the exit, we clear Piastri, who banks out of it, but we're side by side with Esteban Ocon. As you can see, some side by side in front of us. We'll squeeze in between Ricciardo and the Frenchman. So there we go, settling into 14th position, already higher than where we were running in the sprint as Ricciardo. Actually, that's Tsunoda you see going wide right there, but everyone kind of settling in. The Red Bulls in pretty solid shape right off the bat now, as the Ferraris again, something not right with Ferrari this weekend. They are just lacking lacking pace, but it's Verstappen, Perez, Norris, your top three right now. And again, the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso there, at least in the top five, while Lance Stroll runs a little bit further down the grid there. But Lando Norris trying to do the opposite of what he did, of course, in the sprint. It was a pretty disastrous sprint for Lando Norris. It just never worked out for him there, but here in the Grand Prix, looking to be quite different now as I'm side by side with Ricciardo, and into the apex, we'll clear him into P13. A great opening lap for us, so hold on, maybe we do have something to show this weekend to finish it off. Now, just behind our teammate of Alex Albon, who, of course, outran us in 90% of that sprint until that Perez incident that allowed me to get out in front and take over the position for the Williams team now. But what will we see here today in this race is Verstappen, as we come through to the end of lap 1, he is already opening up a bit of a gap here now. Fastest lap, of course, now as we come through the S's section on lap 2, and you can see just right now, barely within kind of range of Albon, who goes wide right there. That's what we got to be careful of now with this AI fix mod. It really makes dirty air a thing, and you can really experience it in the S's sections. So if we went to Suzuka, we'd be feeling the kind of same effect now. Is a bit of a lockup there from Tsunoda on the nose of Charles Leclerc. Ferrari, like I said, they got nothing this weekend now. Leclerc running P10 signs a little bit better, but not pretty for that team this weekend now. Lewis Hamilton, of course, expected to be going there to that team next season as we kick off lap 3. A bit of a gap between Albon, about 0.6 of a second between himself and I, but we close right up there into turn number 1. And Esteban Ocon trying to continue to put a little bit of pressure on myself now, as Perez as well is under pressure from Lando Norris, looking for that second position, which he might get with the DRS here within this next lap or two, as we are now all over the back of our teammate of Alex Albon. Could we maybe make a move here on him with the DRS down towards the heavy braking zone? The answer is no. The engine is gone.
I'm out. I got no power. Engine's gone.
All right, sorry, mate. Park it up on the left here.
Our day comes to a complete end here in just 3 laps from Circuit of the Americas. Now, Max Verstappen running away at this point, but that is our second mechanical failure of our rookie season now, and I feel like they've all been coming for this team within the last half of this season. The first half was pretty good. Of course, there was the first quarter of the career mode where we just had no mechanical failures at all. That didn't exist, but Max Verstappen wins the Grand Prix, extends his championship gap even further. He is so close at this point to locking up his 4th world title here in Formula 1. On top of that, that's Verstappen's 66th win here in Formula 1. You see no win graphic this time. I've been forgetting to put those up recently, but I don't put them up on purpose when we don't see the actual winner cross the start-finish line, which we didn't here. So Verstappen, those 66 wins to his Formula 1 career. Fernando Alonso joins Perez and him on the podium. So a Red Bull 1-2. They were on it all weekend long, but we have really seen Aston Martin, specifically Fernando Alonso, step it up this weekend. Now Aston Martin's definitely finding some pace, but obviously I don't really know if we're going to be able to see Lance Stroll kind of, bring out that pace in his car. But never say never. We've seen crazier things happen in Formula 1. But just overall a great day for Red Bull as well as Max Verstappen here now as he looks to finish up this championship. Carlos Sainz in P4, Leclerc's a P6, so a decent rebound for Ferrari, while Norris dropped down to P5. Piastri nowhere near the points, down in P13 as Albon does pick up a single point. We're the only DNF on the day behind Bottas, Hulkenberg, as well as Zhou Guanyu. How does that affect the standings? Well, Verstappen is 86 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. He is so close to wrapping up this title, and Albon at 19 compared to my 45 there, and Red Bull with a 128-point advantage. I'll see you guys in the next episode from the Mexican Grand Prix, where we hope for a little bit better of a result. I'll see you guys then. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.